working on it, when they run down the hall, that's a beat,
I think everybody will agree with that. Fish haven't been very big, but today Debbie Bales caught one about 21 and a half inches right out here on the long bar in front of the campground. So everybody's been catching a good number of fish. Several people, including Rocky and I, have been into them casting, and it's just been a good time down here. I think everybody will agree with that, right, Denny?
You bet.
It's been a good time. It's been a good time. And we had a little rain, but it's turned out.
How much rain?
It shows you with the rain and everything that we had, how good the spoon pluggers are that we've had down here. Because there's been a lot of fish caught. Yesterday, Rich caught 45-inch muskie.
Yeah.
Chris and Jerry, oh, they were a ball. They were great. They were here last night. And in fact, he called me before I left the motel room to see how everything went today. See how everybody did. You know.
Did anybody catch anyone any bigger?
No, they got the biggest muskie. Now the difference between today, we haven't heard from the guys on Kincaid, but Mike was out there, Bart was out there. Not the success that we had yesterday. Yesterday there was fish all over the lake in Kincaid, and the difference between being able to catch them here today and not catch them in Kincaid, one thing, the watercolor. That's the whole answer. It's not that there's more bass in Crab Orchard than Kincaid. There's probably way more in Kincaid with all that deep water. The watercolor was the key today. We blew out of here, the front went through, kind of got washed out, and the fish still moved at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So no doubt they're moving the CV too. So tomorrow, if I was going to fish tomorrow, I would fish Crab Orchard because of the watercolor, because it's probably going to be washed out tomorrow, and the wind's going to be blowing. I'd fish out here. Hopefully the wind won't be so bad you can't get on the big bars. I'd stay away from Lake of Egypt, even though it's a good bass lake, because it's even clearer than Kincaid. So I'd stay out of there, because you're just looking for trouble if you go there. Okay? So let's flip to the maps, Ron. Flip over to the maps. We covered Kincaid pretty good. Remember I was holding up the screen yesterday and the rain was coming down and everything? We covered Kincaid pretty well.
You want a marker?
I feel.
You got a lot of.
Yeah, give me a trolling rod, please. Trolling rod.
Ah, they're in my truck. Grab one out of the boat.
We covered this pretty good. We got down to where Denny said, right when Denny said he caught his first 2 fish off this hump out here, then the rain came down. That was the end of the whole night. So we covered Kincaid pretty well. We've got this underwater road here, and they indicate on the hotspot maps that the underwater road may be the hotspot. That dotted line right there is the underwater road. Well, the road isn't the hotspot. It's these long bars that are on either side of these feeder creeks that are coming in here. Those long bars are the spots. That's where all the fish will get caught off of there. The big muskie, we corrected that. That came off the island, the south end of the island right there, on a 250 along the weeds. And the same way, there's a big weed line. If you do go to Kincaid tomorrow, on this big point on Miller's Bay, there's a big weed line just to the right of it. And you can run a 250 and catch the edge of those weeds. They come out to about 7 or 8 feet. And what you don't want to do, especially in Crab Orchard, is not run the small lures. You got to run all sizes out here. Most of the guys did. Everybody knows. Now, Lake of Egypt, go to the one that's yellow. Lake of Egypt, we didn't list the boat landings because you can see on the map there's just a ton of them. There's so many places to put in, marinas and public access and everything on Lake of Egypt. Lake of Egypt is narrow for the most part and long, and it's semi-clear. You can see down around 3 to 5 feet, depending on where you're at in the lake. The river channel is distinctly marked with channel markers. You see channel markers way out in the lake. They're not no wake markers or no wake marker boys or anything. They mark the channel. Now what we've circled here is where we fished in one day of fishing on Lake of Egypt with Bart's youngsters out there last year. and the kids caught, I'll let you tell Bart, I'll let Bart tell you what happened that day. We had some bass pros out there that day, and then we had all these little kids out there. But the kids caught 21 bass out here. And I mean, they've never done this before in their life, you know, so we had a pretty good time. Bart, why don't you tell me about that?
Okay.
You could
Oh,
point
well.
out some spots.
Okay. To tell you the story that Terry was going to tell you last year, and I can't take any credit for it because Terry was running the boat and Rocky was running the other one. But we had two or three boats, mainly two boats of some high school students that are in my class here in high school. And like Terry was saying, I mean, they don't know anything about fishing. We were just having them there as a reward. And we were letting them hold the rod, and I was in the boat with Terry. And we fished all day, and we didn't really think that we had done that well because we caught 20-some bass, but we didn't really catch any size. But when we pulled up to the dock, we found out that they were pre-fishing. Skeeter had their big tent up. I mean, it was a big deal, you know, and they were pre-fishing for this thing. And these high school students had caught more bass than this whole tournament thing put together. So, I mean, they were kind of disappointed. They didn't want to hear that story. Larry McCormick and I have spent some time on the Lake of Egypt, and you know, as you can see from looking at the map, that there are a lot of good spots on it. And like Terry had said, the main problem, if you could take this watercolor and put it in the Lake of Egypt, it would be dangerous. I mean, it would be a tremendous lake. But it does have visibility problems in parts of it. Of course, the farther down here you go, the better watercolor becomes. But Larry and I have caught some fish there. Larry's caught more than I have. He's fished it more than I have off of some of the places. We did find this place, Terry has it circled, to be good. We didn't catch any fish off the other day, but we have caught fish off of it. The lake, whoever takes care of this, the people that manage the lake have placed the marker, the no wake marker, I guess is what it is, right on the drop, you know, so I mean you can't miss it. It's right there. Actually, it's in the way, but it's right there. And then we found a place the other day that we hadn't fished before. Larry, do you know, is it not marked on here? Do you remember when we found the fingers off of the...
Which one are you talking about?
Well, the last place that you and I fished...
It's marked on there.
Okay, which one is it?
Close to that one right
Right
there.
here?
Yep.
Okay, this is a good structure. Larry and I fished it the other day. We only had just a few minutes on it, and we mapped it out and put the lures down, and we caught one fish, and then we had to go. It was starting to storm, and we need to get back for some other things. But Lake of Egypt is a great lake, and you know, if you choose to go there, I mean, these places that are marked are definitely good, but there's other places that aren't marked on here that I think you'll find to be good places. But again, the main problem with it is the watercolor, because you're not going to have the watercolor that you have here. Okay?
Yes, any more questions that you have on Lake of Egypt, Bart can answer them. As I said, the channel is marked with marker buoys, and we found some fish up here, and we found some fish up here with these kids, and we couldn't anchor the boat and cast because these kids just, I mean, we didn't even know if they could cast or what they could do, so all of our fish were caught trolling, and there were several times we probably could have anchored the boat, and but we just weren't prepared to do that with the kids.
When we had the boats full of people, I mean, you know, we were loaded down.
Yeah, we were loaded down. We had 3 people in each boat, and 4 at some times, you know. So, yeah, we had fished out here with them the previous year. So, okay, Rock.
Pardon
Yes,
me,
sir.
boys, I had to have that picture in.
Oh, okay. All right, now everybody that fished Crab Orchard today caught some fish, and we did actually pretty well, considering the little front went through, but again, the watercolor. The big bar in front of the campground is this one right here. Now Chase and Jim caught some off of there. Chase, where you at, right?
Yep,
Correct?
right
They
off
caught
near the
some off
end.
there.
And the side too, a little shallower too. There's
Side, okay. And John and Debbie caught some big fish off of here. Debbie caught the big bass off of here today, a 21.5 incher. These 2 points have always been pretty productive. Even going back 30 years, where you see this 20-foot contour line come in here against this, there's actually 22, 24 feet off of those points there. And the deep water swings in real close, as you can see. That's been very productive. Buck's favorite spot, right down here in this corner, just off the riffraff. There's a picnic area there. Isn't that a picnic grove? There's a picnic grove right there. I believe Denny got some there today. And Chase also hit a couple over there today. Then on the riffraff, Rocky and I hit some along the riffraff. We got about 10 along the riffraff and a big catfish to go along with it.
I believe you can focus on one thing.
And then down here off this berry, you got some there? Okay.
Maybe
All
that's
right.
how we
And
go.
over here, Piney Point didn't produce very well today. Now that's really a good spot. That's one of the best spots in the lake, but not today. John, you had one on at Piney Point, didn't you? Johnny had one on at Piney Point. And Johnny was kind enough to point out to us that his spot, that is a pretty good midsummer spot, John says. I think you hit him in July, the 4th of July. It was 100 degrees out here.
105.
105. There's some humps out here, a big hump out here, comes up to about 7.5 feet on the top of it.
You know, I called an
He
8
told
pounder.
us how to line it up.
You did?
I did. I called an 8 pounder on his spot.
On those humps, Buck?
On those humps, yes.
On the humps.
On the humps.
And then we went, well, as we said, Piney Point didn't produce too well today, and everybody hit it. I mean, there was people there all day long. People would come up and see somebody else working it, and they would leave and come back and work it later. I know I was there twice, and we didn't do any good on it. Well, Rocky and I hit him at about 4:45, was on this road. This road is very narrow on the end. It's about 5 feet, 6 feet on the top. It goes right down to, what did we say, John, 24 feet?
Close to that.
About 24 feet, 22 feet of water, right off the end of that road. You can anchor the boat in about 5 feet of water, 4.5 feet of water, and cast into this 22 feet. And it's very narrow. It's like having two of those benches put together on the end. So if you mark it, you put a marker on this side of it, you find the end of it, put a marker on this side, put a marker on this side, where it starts to flare out a little bit, and then you've got the point of it right in the middle. And you can't miss the anchoring spot. It's much easier to anchor on it and cast it than it would be to troll it. You can't hit it right trolling it. It's very difficult. It's easier to fan cast it, anchor on it. So anybody that's fishing here tomorrow, try and find that spot and try and anchor on it. Because it'll be worth your while. Rocky had them coming. He had 5 casts with a 100. He had 3 of them coming in 5 casts. He's really cranking them up. And I caught one a little bit later on there. I got the first one trolling. We came off the end of it, and he took it just as it came off. Is there any questions about crab orchard or anything? I think most of the guys that we have here, they know their way around, so there shouldn't be any question. But anybody that's not familiar with it, if you see any of these guys out there tomorrow, if you see Denny, if you see John, you see John Boy, whoever you see, Vic and Rocky, out there tomorrow, if you see them, make sure if you're a little confused on something, make sure you stop and talk to them. They'll steer you straight out there. They really will. And they'll fix it up so you can get some fish. But when you get on here, the way to cast this thing is you anchor in 5 feet, you fan cast it with a 100, and you'll find out that you won't start walking the lure. It's so steep out there, till you get pretty close to the boat on the sides. But when you make the right cast, you'll start walking way out there. You'll feel it come up over a real rough spot. Now, most people that aren't used to casting the 100, what they do is they're reeling it in, they kind of hesitate. And then when it gets hung up, they're afraid to pull on that expensive casting rod that they got. They're afraid to lean into it, you know what I mean? So what happens is they get hung up on the brake line, and that's what'll happen out here. Get hung up right on the brake line. Then you pull the anchor up and everything, and by the time you start motoring out there, pretty soon it's free. It's loose, it came off. The reason you use this kind of stuff is when you start cranking it in and you keep cranking and cranking, you feel it hang, you grab that rod and you rip it, you pull. You rip through that stuff. That's how you gotta cast this stuff. You can't be mamby-pambying around out here. Like this, you gotta keep it coming.
Pambying around.
Well, I got that from you. Okay, so don't be afraid to treat this fishing tackle rough. It's just like trolling down the riprap. You see people troll the riprap, they go 30 feet and they're hung up. You gotta grab that trolling rod and lift it in the air and rip that thing. You gotta pull so you can keep on going. You can't just let it creep in there and sit there real timidly. Otherwise you can't troll the riprap, okay? So now before you leave this spot, you fan cast it with a 100. Don't use a 700 because then you will get buried in it. There's some brush out there. John was kind enough to take some brush off it. He was out there earlier he took some stuff off of it, so it's kind of clean when Rocky and I got there. But then fan cast it with a jump type lure, like a jigging worm or a jigging pig or a jump spoon or something, before you leave. Before you leave it, just make sure you fan cast. If you've got 2 people, you can really get it going, because I was casting over here, Rocky was casting over there, and he had it come right up that road, and he had 3 and 5 casts. So it's just, this is a good lake. I think Denny and John, you agree, don't you? It's a good lake to get the casting position on. You can work lures, you know, just don't be timid out there, you know, because there are some bushes and there are some branches and stuff like that, you know. So you got to just get through them. You know, you can do it. You can do it, okay? That's why we don't say to go out there with a spinning rod with 8-pound test line. You can't even fish this stuff with that. Years ago, when people would bring a spinning rod down south, they would go to Bull Shoals or something, the guide would see them with the spinning rod, he'd laugh at them. He knew they were Yankees, I can tell you that. You know what I mean? Because you can't even fish these places with something like that. So this lake should be good because of the watercolor. And we've got a lot of good spots marked. Certainly there are more. There are more. People caught fish in areas today that we don't have marked. We've got a couple of question marks out here in certain areas. Myself, I didn't know where Johnny Boy's spot was out here, that hump. Maybe some of you will go look for that tomorrow and try and find it. And I'm sure John Bales will have plenty of company on that big long bar tomorrow. I'm sure a lot of people will be fishing that one. Is there any questions about this thing at all?
Jerry, I didn't hear you mention anything about trout lines.
Oh, yeah, trout lines. Yeah, we Rocky pulled up a couple today. There was some trout lines out here. How many guys got